For more than 50 years, the global aviation industry has been dominated by just two companies, Boeing and Airbus. Their aircraft carry billions of passengers every year and power the backbone of modern air travel. But now, a new challenger is rising, and it's coming from China. Backed by massive state funding and the world's fastest-growing aviation market, China's aircraft manufacturer COMAC has begun rolling out new passenger jets like the C919. Beijing's goal is clear: break the Boeing-Airbus duopoly. But can Chinese aircraft really compete with the giants of aviation, or even replace them in the future? Let's take a closer look. For decades, the global commercial aviation market has been dominated by two manufacturers, Boeing in the United States and Airbus in Europe. Together, these two companies control the vast majority of the world's large passenger aircraft market. From short domestic flights to long intercontinental journeys, Boeing and Airbus jets carry billions of passengers every year. At the center of this dominance are their narrow-body aircraft, the Boeing 737 and the Airbus A320 families. These planes are the workhorses of modern aviation. Airlines use them for the majority of short and medium-haul routes because they are efficient, reliable, and relatively cost-effective to operate. Over the years, both manufacturers have produced thousands of these aircraft, and airlines around the world have built their fleets around them. But building a commercial aircraft is one of the most complex industrial challenges in the world. A modern passenger jet contains millions of individual components and relies on an enormous global supply chain. Hundreds of specialized companies produce everything from engines and avionics to landing gear and flight control systems. Bringing all of these technologies together into a single aircraft requires decades of engineering experience and billions of dollars in investment. And even after an aircraft is designed and built, another major challenge begins: certification. Before a new aircraft can carry passengers, it must pass extremely strict safety tests and be approved by aviation regulators such as the Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA in the United States, and the European Union Aviation Safety Agency, known as EASA. This process can take many years and requires extensive testing to ensure the aircraft is safe in every possible scenario. But certification alone does not guarantee success. Airlines are extremely cautious when purchasing aircraft. A single jetliner can cost well over $100 million, and airlines depend on reliability, maintenance networks, spare parts availability, and pilot training programs. When airlines buy planes, they are investing in equipment that must operate safely and efficiently for decades. Because of these enormous barriers, very few companies have managed to enter the commercial aircraft market successfully. Several manufacturers have tried, but most struggled to compete with the experience, reputation, and global infrastructure of Boeing and Airbus. This is what makes China's ambitions so significant. Because for the first time in decades, a new player is attempting to challenge one of the most powerful duopolies in modern industry. China's biggest step into the global aviation industry came with the development of the COMAC C919. The aircraft was designed to compete directly with two of the most successful airplanes ever built, the Boeing 737 and the Airbus A320. These narrow-body jets dominate short and medium-haul travel around the world, making them the most important segment of the commercial aviation market. For China, entering this category was a strategic decision. The C919 program was launched by the Commercial Aircraft Corporation of China, better known as COMAC, a state-owned aerospace company created specifically to build China's domestic aviation industry. The goal was not just to build an airplane, but to reduce China's reliance on Western aircraft manufacturers. The first C919 prototype rolled out in 2015 and completed its maiden flight in 2017. After years of testing and development, the aircraft finally entered commercial service in 2023 with China Eastern Airlines, marking a historic moment for China's aerospace ambitions. At first glance, the C919 looks very similar to its Western competitors, and that's not a coincidence. The aircraft is designed with a typical narrow-body configuration, capable of carrying around 150 to 170 passengers depending on the layout, and flying routes of roughly 4,000 kilometers. In many ways, it targets the exact same missions as the Boeing 737 MAX and the Airbus A320neo. However, despite being a Chinese aircraft, many of its most critical components actually come from international suppliers. The C919 currently uses LEAP engines, developed by CFM International, a joint venture between the American company GE and the French aerospace firm Safran. Key avionics systems and other technologies also come from Western suppliers. This reflects an important reality. China's commercial aviation industry is still developing, and while the country has made significant progress, it continues to rely on global aerospace technology in several key areas. But even with these dependencies, the C919 represents a major milestone. China is one of the largest aviation markets in the world, with hundreds of millions of passengers flying every year and demand for thousands of new aircraft in the coming decades. If Chinese airlines begin adopting the C919 in large numbers, it could gradually create a strong domestic market for COMAC aircraft. And once that domestic foundation is established, China could begin looking outward, toward the global aviation market currently dominated by Boeing and Airbus. Before the C919 ever carried its first passengers, China had already begun building experience in commercial aviation with another aircraft, the ARJ-21. The ARJ-21, short for Advanced Regional Jet for the 21st Century, was China's first domestically developed regional passenger aircraft. Unlike the C919, which competes with the Boeing 737 and Airbus A320, the ARJ-21 was designed for shorter regional routes, typically carrying between 70 and 90 passengers. At first glance, the aircraft might not seem revolutionary. In fact, its design resembles older regional jets such as the McDonnell Douglas MD-80 series. But for China, the ARJ-21 was never meant to be a technological breakthrough. Instead, it was something just as important, a learning platform. Developing a modern passenger aircraft requires mastering a wide range of complex technologies, from aerodynamics and structural engineering to flight control systems, certification procedures, and large-scale manufacturing. For a country that had never produced a modern commercial jet before, gaining this experience was essential. The ARJ-21 program officially launched in the early 2000s, and after a long development process filled with delays and testing challenges, the aircraft finally entered commercial service in 2016. Since then, dozens of ARJ-21 aircraft have been delivered to Chinese airlines. Most of them operate on domestic routes, connecting smaller cities across China's rapidly expanding air travel network. While the aircraft is not widely used outside of China, it has played a critical role in building China's aviation capabilities. Through the ARJ-21 program, Chinese engineers gained valuable experience in aircraft design, production, and certification. Factories learned how to assemble complex aerospace systems, manage supply chains, and scale up manufacturing processes. In many ways, the ARJ-21 served as a training ground for China's next-generation aircraft, including the C919. Each aircraft delivered helped China move one step closer to developing a fully independent commercial aviation industry, and the strategy appears to be working. By starting with a smaller regional jet and gradually moving toward larger, more advanced aircraft, China is following a similar path taken by other aerospace nations in the past. Step by step, aircraft by aircraft, the country is building the knowledge and infrastructure needed to challenge the long-standing dominance of Boeing and Airbus. But China's ambitions don't stop with narrow-body jets, because the next aircraft in development aims to compete in one of the most advanced and profitable segments of the aviation industry. While the C919 represents China's entry into the narrow-body market, the country's long-term ambitions go much further. China is also working on a much larger and more complex aircraft, the C929. This aircraft is designed to compete in the wide-body segment of the market, the category used for long-haul international travel. Wide-body jets are the giants of commercial aviation, carrying hundreds of passengers across continents and oceans. Today, this market is dominated by aircraft such as the Boeing 787 Dreamliner, the Boeing 777, and the Airbus A350. Entering this segment is even more difficult than building a narrow-body jet. Wide-body aircraft require more advanced engineering, larger structures, longer flight ranges, and extremely efficient engines to make long-distance travel economically viable for airlines. Only a handful of manufacturers in history have managed to build successful wide-body aircraft. China's C929 aims to join that exclusive group. The aircraft is expected to carry around 250 to 300 passengers and fly routes of roughly 12,000 kilometers, putting it directly in competition with some of the most advanced long-haul aircraft currently flying. Originally, the project was planned as a joint program between China and Russia under a partnership between COMAC and the Russian aircraft manufacturer United Aircraft Corporation. The idea was to combine resources and expertise to accelerate development. However, in recent years, the project has shifted toward a more China-led approach, with Beijing increasingly focusing on developing the aircraft domestically. This shift reflects China's broader strategy of building technological independence in critical industries, including aerospace. If successful, the C919 could become a major milestone for China's aviation ambitions. It would demonstrate that the country is capable not only of building regional and narrow-body jets, but also large, long-haul aircraft capable of competing on the global stage. However, developing a wide-body jet is an enormous challenge. It requires advanced materials, highly efficient engines, and a global support network capable of maintaining aircraft around the world. Even experienced manufacturers face significant hurdles when developing new, wide-body aircraft programs. Still, China has one major advantage: its rapidly expanding aviation market. With growing demand for international travel and thousands of aircraft expected to be needed in the coming decades, the C929 could find a strong customer base at home before expanding abroad. And if that happens, the balance of power in global aviation could begin to shift. China's aviation industry is still young compared to the decades of experience behind Boeing and Airbus. Building a commercial aircraft is not just about engineering. It's about trust, safety, and global support networks that airlines rely on every day. For now, Boeing and Airbus still dominate the global market. Their aircraft are certified around the world, supported by massive maintenance networks, and trusted by airlines after decades of proven performance. But China is playing a long game. With the ARJ21, the country learned how to build and operate regional jets. With the C919, it has entered the narrow-body market, the most important segment in global aviation. And with the future C929, China is aiming directly at the long-haul, wide-body market dominated by aircraft like the Boeing 787 and Airbus A350. At the same time, China has one major advantage: its enormous domestic aviation market. Chinese airlines will need thousands of new aircraft in the coming decades, and even capturing a portion of that demand could help COMAC grow into a serious competitor. So the real question is no longer whether China can build commercial aircraft. The real question is how long it will take before Chinese planes start competing globally with Boeing and Airbus. And what do you think? Could China eventually break the aviation duopoly? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more aviation content.